Edible landscaping. And please come and join the seated area if you want to hear all about that. Over to you, Zach. Thank you very much indeed.
Hello, my name is Zach. I'm here to talk today about the concept of edible landscaping. In my view, whenever this subject comes up in conversation, the terms edible landscaping or edible gardening carry with them certain conceptions. In my experience, when someone imagines an edible garden, they imagine allotments, ploughed fields, rows of cabbages, basically lots of commercial. The use of annuals, something labour intensive, functional designs, but not anything that's that pretty, or something they would like in their garden. Because of this, it can sometimes be quite challenging to pitch this concept for a domestic or a public space setting. Edible landscaping, in my view, defies what people expect. For me, edible landscaping is a merger of growing your own with ornamental garden design principles. Basically, it's the idea of designing and planting an ornamental garden with plants that have edible functions, as well as looking nice. Like ornamental gardens, edible landscaping uses perennials and or self-seeding annuals. The aim is to create dual-functional ornamental gardens with an edible twist. In order to do this, you select architectural perennial plants that also have some form of edible function and interplant them together, following conventional garden design theory or permaculture principles, or both. And there is a huge diversity of both ornamental and edible plants appropriate for an edible landscape bed to choose from, with a massive range of forms, colours, flavours and textures. Some of these are the Molyneux, the Chilean Guava, in the Myrtaceae or the myrtle family, which is just like ornamental myrtle. But what makes this species different is that it also produces tropical flavoured red berries. The yuzu lime in the Myrtaceae or citrus family, probably the most expensive citrus that exists. I believe the juice is available in Waitrose at quite a high price. But it's a UK hardy citrus that can be grown in this country. Actinidia aguta, the Siberian mini kiwi that produces smaller kiwis with smooth edible skin that can be picked straight from the vine. Tubercular Villaceae or society garlic, edible garlic flavoured leaves and flowers, all disguised as a common herbaceous plant. So these are all ornamental plants with edible viability that can also be grown in this country, and that to the untrained eye look just like any ornamental plant. And there's so much more. Hostas, fuchsias, borage, nasturtiums, lemon verbena, tusha, fiddlehead fern of edible fiddleheads, persimmons, Shoshone peppers, canis dahlias, Cordius baccata, the Himalayan ginger, Zingiber myoga, the Japanese hardy ginger, Citrus foliata, the Japanese bitter orange, Atriplex similis, the saltbush, conventional herbs, and even bamboo. It is absolutely achievable that when plants like these are planted together, following appropriate garden design theory, that they can create beautiful aesthetic gardens that to the untrained eye look just like any well-designed ornamental garden, the twist being that everything you see is edible. And as perennials and self-seeding annuals are used, harvests will come back year after year after year. One method that can be utilised for a garden such as this is the permaculture principle of edible forest gardening. Edible forest gardening is a method used in permaculture made popular by Martin Crawford and works by replicating natural woodlands. Plants are categorised into 7 forest layers and then interplanted together. These layers include things like canopies, climbers and ground covers. Once established, plants are then ultimately left to do their own thing and create their own ecosystem, which is great for soil ecology but also dramatically reduces required maintenance. So when using this design method, for example, edible landscaping requires significantly less maintenance than a herbaceous border, and definitely things like bedding. Edible landscaping also has huge potential to provide a massive diversity of flavours, all from one bed. Flavours such as garlic, ginger, to citrus, salty, spicy guava, kiwi and cabbage. I mean, who doesn't want to step into their garden and pick fresh yuzus and persimmons straight from the tree? it is certainly appealing to me. However, the concept of edible landscaping could do more than this. I believe it's possible for edible landscaping to contribute to solutions to some of today's contemporary issues. The Faculty of Public Health claim that 30% of premature death and disability in this country are attributed to poor diet. In this country, the cheapest food is generally the most processed and the least healthy, while more healthy food is generally marketed at a higher end. In light of this, it's not surprising that the Faculty of Public Health also claim that statistically, the lower your income, the worse your diet. The Faculty of Public Health go on to state that the best way to improve food security in the UK and nutrition in the UK in low-income areas is to make good food accessible, good food affordable, and sourced locally whenever possible. The Office of National Statistics claim that 19 million people are below the poverty line and 3 million of which are children. These 19 million people are statistically far less likely to have access to good, healthy food, according to the Faculty of Public Health. Is there a solution? Well, obviously there are vastly complex sociological variables in place that determine whether an area is in poverty or not. But in terms of what the Faculty of Public Health are recommending, maybe there is a solution, or at least a part solution. Edible landscaping in public spaces could potentially do everything that the Faculty of Public Health is recommending. It would make good food accessible because it would be on the street. It would make good food sourced locally because it would be on the street. And of course it would be affordable because it would be free. It would be on the street. Again, it wouldn't have to be unsightly. It could be designed well, incorporating architectural plans. It could beautify areas, as well as improve food accessibility and food affordability in areas where people are struggling. It's possible that planting like this in low-income areas, for example, could seriously alleviate poverty and also improve the health and nutrition of people who need it. So, if edible landscaping was to become commonplace in green space planting, it could replace some of the conventional green space planting we see around Cornwall that varies in how nice it is or isn't. Things like ornamental cherries and crab apples and really Bristolinia, possibly. If you felt uncomfortable about replacing existing planting, councils could make a point of incorporating edibles in future green spaces. However, planting isn't actually what dominates most of our green spaces. The most intensively cultivated thing in the Western world is lawn, or turf grass, which occupies more space in the UK than any other form of planting. Why? How is it that something that produces no form of quantifiable yield, something that is a comparative ecological desert when compared to any other form of planting, how is it that something like that is now the Western world's most intensively cultivated thing? Well, lawns became popular in the early 17th century, and they did so by basically doing absolutely nothing. At the time, land was typically utilised to grow food and to breed livestock. However, some very wealthy people at the time, who were wealthy enough not to need to utilise land, decorated their estates with lawn. These early lawns required regular maintenance for sides, heat of servants to do so. And this was done basically as a means to demonstrate that the landowner had land to waste. They were status symbols, a means to display wealth and all the societal implications that came with it. Possibly a gentrified version of boasting. And as time moved on and people forgot where the lawn came from, they're now sort of accepted as a cultural standard. Now there's no doubt that they have their place for sports, for picnics, for places to sit in the sun, but they really need to occupy as much space as they do. Also, outside my house, there's a large lawned area, and when I first saw it, I assumed it was used for the reasons I just described, like sunbathing and sport, only to see a big sign on it saying no walkouts. I expect people have seen similar things, lawns that have keep up the grass on. What's the point of them? If they can't be utilised to play sport, or they can't be utilised to sit on or enjoy, why choose lawn space when there are so many other more useful or ecological forms of planting? Well, I've had the discussion before with friends, and generally the most common argument for the lawn seems to be that it requires less maintenance. Which again, isn't quite accurate. For lawns to look good, they need to be mowed, ideally once a week, if not twice a week. On top of this, they require a disproportionate amount of chemicals, like weeds and feeds, to stop them getting overrun with perennial weeds. If you compare edible landscape, or even wildflower, to lawn, the wildflower meadow and the edible landscaping require significantly less maintenance. Could we maybe replace some of the lawns in our country with edible landscape, reduce maintenance, and actually provide a good food sources as well? So, edible landscaping could potentially contribute to some contemporary issues, at least in this case. Things like food security, food affordability and accessibility. And it could also really beautify areas. But there's more. Growing locally also has potential benefits on the nutritional content of the crops itself. Commercial growers typically select cultivars that have been selected and bred for yield and shelf life, rather than nutrition. Dr. Donald Davis, a biochemist at the University of Texas, compared various garden crops of their older ancestral counterparts and found a comparative decline in nutrients in the majority of examples. He went on to state that when you select varieties for yield and shelf life, crops go faster, but don't necessarily have the ability to make up or take up the nutrients at this faster rate. And this statement is backed by other studies in the Journal of the Science of Food. Plants for edible landscaping have not been cultivated for commercial viability, and therefore haven't had the nutrition bred out of them in the same kind of way. Also, they can be picked ripe and eaten straight away, which, according to Harvard University, is when crops contain optimum nutrition. In addition, if interplanted and designed well, an edible landscape bed can massively reduce the necessity for chemical fertilisers and pesticides when compared to conventional agriculture. So, with public space edible landscaping, there is potential to provide nutritionally superior, pesticide-free, ripe produce that is available and accessible and is free. Another issue of today's world is the decline in pollinators. The ecologist Chris Packman described the last few years as apocalyptic for the UK's wildlife. The food produced by edible landscaping doesn't have to be provided at the expense of pollinated food either, or habitats for wildlife. Also, if you consider that the need for chemical pesticides is dramatically reduced when different plants are interplanted, and methods such as edible forest gardening, which dramatically reduce the necessity for chemical feeds, edible landscape planting can also be ecological. For me, horticulture has always been more than pretty gardens. And don't get me wrong, I love a pretty garden. For me, horticulture is about taking control of our food. It's about taking control of what we put into our bodies. It's about delaying this apocalypse on our planet's wildlife. If ever an opportunity arose where we could achieve all those things and provide an accessible and affordable food source for those who need it, I would be silly not to jump on it. For me, edible landscaping is the opportunity, and that's why I've shared it with you today. Thank you.
Woo!
Zach, thank you very much indeed. Would anybody like to ask any questions? If not, Zach is going to be joining us again at 13:30 for our question time section with Al Moore and a number of other experts across the horticultural range. And Zach, thank you so much for giving us your time and your many insights into your aspects of horticultural activity. Really great. Thank you. And you did brilliantly. I know it's a nervous moment, but you did brilliantly.
Oh, we've got a question.
Sorry, 2 seconds.
So if I wanted to speak to...
Really.
I was just going to ask, like, if I wanted to see him later, is he going to be around, other than at the question time anywhere else?
Yeah, he's on his phone.